August 5, 1962, 3:47 in the morning. When Los Angeles police discovered Marilyn Monroe's lifeless body, the scene looked like a perfect suicide scenario. But an FBI phone recording that emerged in 2019 after declassification revealed the untold side of that night. The recording captured Marilyn's trembling voice. Quote, "Elvis, they're going to find me. Please tell them." End quote. Who was Marilyn really talking to that night? And how was Elvis Presley connected to Hollywood's biggest icon's death? March 1960, at a private party in Beverly Hills, Elvis Presley and Marilyn Monroe met for the first time. Until that day, the media had never shown them together. When Elvis was in the Army, Marilyn was already at the top. Then the roles switched. But that night, at Frank Sinatra's invitation, two legends were finally in the same room. According to party attendees, Elvis stood quietly in the corner. Marilyn was dancing with John F. Kennedy's close friends. When the clock passed midnight, something happened. Marilyn walked over to Elvis and whispered something in his ear. Elvis's face turned white as a sheet. "Fear them," Marilyn said. "They're not what you think they are." After that night, what began between Elvis and Marilyn was a secret friendship that appears in no official records. They talked on the phone, they wrote letters, and they both feared the same people. Fall of 1961. Marilyn Monroe was having an affair with President John F. Kennedy. This wasn't a secret, at least not in Hollywood's inner circles. But Marilyn made a mistake. She became emotionally attached. She fell in love with Kennedy, and the president saw this as a threat. Robert Kennedy, the president's brother and attorney general, was assigned to handle the situation. The job of silencing Marilyn was given to him. But Marilyn was preparing to talk. She would go to the press. She would expose all of the White House's dirty laundry. When Elvis heard this plan from Marilyn, he was horrified. Quote, "They'll kill you, Marilyn. These aren't people who joke around," he said on the phone. End quote. In those days, Elvis himself was under FBI surveillance because Elvis worked with black musicians and sympathized with the civil rights movement. J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, had put Elvis on the potential threat list. Two celebrities were trapped in the same web. August 4th, 1962, afternoon. Marilyn Monroe was in an extremely tense state at her Brentwood home. Robert Kennedy had visited the house that day. Neighbors heard shouting. Kennedy had left in anger. At 8:30 p.m., Marilyn called Elvis. This conversation was recorded by the FBI because Elvis's line was wiretapped. The recording contained these statements. "Marilyn, I'm so scared, Elvis. Bobby came today. He threatened me. If I talk to the press." Elvis, "What did he say he'd do?" Marilyn, "He said he'd destroy me, that no one would believe me, that I'd be locked up as crazy." Elvis, "Marilyn, please stay calm. I'm coming to Los Angeles tomorrow. Let's talk face to face." But tomorrow never came. August 5th, 4:25 in the morning. Elvis Presley woke up at his Graceland mansion in Memphis. The phone was ringing. The caller is unknown, but Elvis's reaction from that moment was recorded. Security guards heard Elvis screaming, quote, "No, no, God, no." End quote. Marilyn Monroe was dead. The official statement was simple. Sleeping pill overdose, probable suicide. But many things at the scene were inconsistent. Marilyn had the phone in her hand, but the line was cut. There was no broken bottle in the house, but no stomach pumping had been done. The time of death was recorded as 3:50 a.m., but police weren't called until 4:25. And most importantly, Marilyn's last phone call wasn't in the records. The phone company announced that the call list for that night had been, quote, "lost." End quote. Elvis didn't attend the funeral. In fact, he made no statement at all. But people in his close circle said Elvis became a completely different person after that day. Paranoid, silent, a man who constantly thought he was being followed. 2019. The U.S. National Archives released a file, J. Edgar Hoover's private archive. Inside was a 47-page report about Marilyn Monroe. And on page 12 of this report, this statement appeared. Quote, subject, Marilyn Monroe, made a phone call to Memphis, Tennessee at 8:32 p.m. on August 4th, 1962. Recipient, Elvis Aaron Presley. Call duration, 17 minutes, 38 seconds. Content, classified for national security reasons. End quote. The file didn't give the content of the conversation, but it stated this. Elvis Presley was the last person to talk to Marilyn Monroe 6 hours before her death, and Elvis had said something to Marilyn in this conversation. According to FBI notes, quote, Subject EP advised Subject MM to remain silent and meet tomorrow. Mime rejected this advice and stated that it's too late now. End quote. So what was Marilyn talking about being too late for? What really happened that night? Elvis Presley didn't say a single word about this subject for 15 years after Marilyn's death. But in 1977, just 5 months before his own death, in a television interview, the journalist asked the question, "Did you know Marilyn Monroe, Mr. Presley?" Elvis's face went rigid. For 11 seconds, he said nothing. Then he just said, "Yes," and closed the subject. But according to Elvis's doctor, Dr. George Nicopolis, Elvis constantly had nightmares in his final years. Quote, "A woman was calling me, asking for help, but I couldn't do anything. He would scream in his sleep." End quote. When Elvis died in August 1977, something strange was found in his security safe. A photograph belonging to Marilyn Monroe. On the back was a handwritten note. Quote, "You can't save her, Elvis. I love you, M." End quote. History never saw this note. The photograph was moved to the Presley family's private archive and never surfaced again. Today, 60 years later, the real cause of Marilyn Monroe's death is still debated. The Kennedy family has always denied any connection. The full contents of the FBI file are still classified. And Elvis Presley took his secret to the grave. But one thing is certain. That night, Marilyn Monroe asked someone for help. And that person was Elvis. Two legends were lost inside a dark world. One died. The other was buried in silence. Perhaps the truth will never be known. But somewhere in the FBI archives, that 17-minute phone recording still waits to be heard. And maybe one day, Marilyn's last words will be heard by the world. What do you think really happened that night? Was Marilyn's death really suicide, or was she silenced? And why did Elvis never speak?